Hi, I'm Chris Parkin. I'm here today with the new Pulsar Accolade XP50 thermal binoculars. Welcome to the Night Vision Show. The new XP50 Accolades are a step up from the Helions, which have been going around for the last sort of 15-18 months. The big advantage is we've now got two eyepieces, not the single monocular eyepiece of old. There is still one sensor and the two eyepieces are individually focusable on the internal screen, just like a regular pair of binoculars, and then you've got one central focus dial to dial for the distance you're looking at. The big advantage of two eyepieces is that there's far less eye strain between your imbalanced vision that you have at night walking around. There is the disadvantage that with both eyes looking at the bright internal picture, you do lose some of your night vision. And although most people think night vision is just your pupils opening and closing, there are actual chemical changes within the eyeball as well, which once diminished do take some time to build back up. That's why when you go hunting at night, you'll find that your eyesight gets better and better and better the more time you spend in darkness. Last year I actually did a comparison of the Helion XP and XQ50s bolted together, set up like a binocular. And it was quite interesting looking at the resolution difference of the screens, because this is a 17 micron screen on the 640 by 480 resolution. The other factor was the lower magnification makes things better too. This one goes down to 2.5. I've been using an XQ Helion which goes down to I think 4.1. Going down to 2.5 is brilliant because it gives you far more field of view and you just feel far more relaxed in your environment with greater sense of spatial awareness. Even though you do lose a bit more night vision and in both eyes, because the balance is still there, either with the thermal on or with the thermal off, you don't notice it quite as badly actually. And although I was quite sceptical of the Accolade, I must admit I've warmed to it greatly. The price is £4,699.95, but I think if you are in the market for a serious piece of thermal kit, you will find a way to buy that, because we see jumps in technology. The thermal technology has started to plateau now and we're getting better functionality and better ergonomics too. I think ergonomics is the key word for these. So don't dismiss them out of hand, because I'm quite a hard person to convince and I think I've ended up convinced. You can read about all the technical specifications and features on the Scott Country website or by going to Pulsar directly. I'm not going to try and tell you in 10 minutes about every feature and function of these. I'm going to tell you what it's like really living with them. To me, when you're scanning at night, it's a tiring process like any long-term use of optics. Even in daylight with binoculars or a spotting scope, your eyes do get tired. I've always found Helions and the previous Quantum to be tiring. Very, very effective, but tiring. The one thing Pulsar have said about these is they make for a more relaxed environment, and I have to agree, it is a very much more relaxed environment. The ergonomic benefits are significant and I think absolutely real. To me, one of the big advantages of the Accolade is that because you're holding it in two hands and it's a more recognisable binocular format, you've got both sets of fingers operating the same 5 buttons. You've got the main power button here, zoom in, zoom out, record for the photography or video option, and the main menu button. Each button has 3 options for a quick press, a medium press, or a long hold and press. The lens cap at the front is far more easily stored back out of the way, and it's not now interfering with any kind of focal control. Your focus at the back here is operable with either finger and is easy to use. The battery system is the IPX5, which locks on and off like this, gives you an 8-hour run time, and when it says it's quarter full, quarter left, it has got quarter full and a quarter left. So that's been the big advantage to me for a lot of the Pulsar range for the last 18 months. Each eyepiece can be focused independently to balance the view onto the screen and get it exactly in focus for the slight dioptric differences between your two eyes. You've got the familiar rubber eye shields so that when they're up to your eyes, you keep extraneous light sources out. These will move apart and together for the interpupillary distance, which you would normally get on a pair of binoculars folding them backwards and forwards like this. They won't move on their own, but they will move smoothly when done exactly in unison. To me, the big advantage over the Helion, with twin eyepieces, they're locked firmly in position onto your face, into your orbital sockets. I never liked the Helion because that one eyepiece, as it drifted slightly in your field of view, the pinpoint focal point on it was drifting around across your eye. And you could drift back in and out of looking in focus to out of focus, and you'd be at the front here changing focus onto the target. You might even be changing the eyepiece focus, hoping for something better. And it was never as simple as that. It was this pure fact that the lens in the back and the ocular was such a pinprick of focal point that any disruption from that gave you problems. This is far, far more relaxed because it locks both eyes straight together, and wherever you move, it stays in place. I think that's a fantastic benefit. And although I don't fully agree with what Pulsar say about night vision capability from your natural eyesight, I do agree it's a far, far, far more comfortable scanning environment. Where the big downside is if you are still transferring to a regular daylight optic as dusk happens and you've been scanning with this using both eyes, your right eye or left eye as you now go onto the scope is really diminished from night vision capability. If you're using a thermal sight like a trail, that doesn't really matter. But for those of us still using daylight optics into the dusk, or if you're using it for, say, spotting deer near dusk, especially if they're into a foliage background where they're very hard to pick out the brown coloration against the foliage tones, you might find a slight downside. And whereas with the Helion, you could use the offset eye easily with one hand, you don't naturally do it with this, although there is nothing to stop you doing it in this way here. So you kind of have got the best of both worlds. The menu system is probably familiar if you've used Helions before. A long hold on the primary menu button brings down the tree of menus, which you can go on to subsidiary branches to move into items like the 8-colour palette, black hot, white hot. You can move for time, date, video settings. You can link it through Wi-Fi to your mobile phone. The 640 by 480 resolution on the internal sensor gives you an extremely fine field of view, and with it 50 Hz refresh rate, it's totally smooth in movement as well. Detection range is out to 1800 meters, and you've got from 2.5 to 20 times magnification. Base level optical is 2.5. All the extra magnification is done digitally, and there is also a screen-in-screen setting so that the overall picture has a block inside at the top which uses whichever magnification you then set extra on top of that. Different colour palettes work in different light conditions, but most people prefer either white hot or black hot for simplicity and clarity of movement, and it's also a lot more consistent in the way the colours change. If you go for the red hot, for example, sometimes ping, you'll get great big belches of colour will just bleed straight into the vision. It's helpful for sometimes recognising the legs, ears, extraneous parts of an animal's body, but I prefer just to leave it on white hot, and it was only when I had longer periods to really examine something I would use a bit more magnification and possibly blip into the red colour palette for red equals hot, and you will then see the difference. You can even see the difference between the antler structure on a deer with that in daylight. The underside has a standard 1/4-inch tripod thread, and the cap clips on and off far more securely than it ever did on the Helion. Doesn't get in the way either. The binoculars have got an IPX7 waterproof rating, which will allow them to stay underwater a metre for 30 minutes, which is not something I'm probably willing to try, but it's very reassuring for those nights when it just won't stop raining and everything gets wet. One thing I didn't like about the Helion was when you changed to a monocular with a central mounting point for the sling, it was always bouncing around in the centre of your neck, chest and stomach. Now we're back to a binocular format with a standard sling around your neck. It holds and it sits fine. It doesn't matter if you lean forward, stand up, it will sit back to centre. This is a big benefit and is more like the previous versions like the Quantum were before the Helion arrived. Pressing the buttons is tactile and light, and of course because you have both hands on now with only one finger operating at a time, you don't tend to jerk or move. Not jerking or moving is very useful when using the stadiometric rangefinder, which you part the lines to bracket whatever quarry species you're looking at, giving you an approximate distance to target. You can set it up in meters or yards. The stadiometric rangefinder, it's okay, but it's more of a just general overall reference to me rather than an exact science, because animals different size, they're different perspective, and you get a rabbit standing fully up compared to 3/4 erect and the distance is vastly different. It's not a problem to change the image brightness and contrast inside. These are both very useful functions. You can also use the stadiometric rangefinder and the zoom functions far more easily with far less disruption to the binocular. As before, a long hold on the record button will swap the video function inside to still photography and vice versa going back. A short brief press sets it recording, stored onto the internal memory capacity, which is accessed through a USB port here and just downloaded onto your PC. This is really useful afterwards. It's great for showing farmers what you've seen out that night, because when they say there are millions of rabbits and you show them a field full of 5 rabbits, it's a bit different. Vice versa, if they don't believe they've got deer and you show them deer, you've got the evidence. Waiting out for the fox last night with the Accolades was a different experience, because we were scanning about 300 to 400 metres wide by about 700 metres into the distance. Knowing this fox was going to appear, it had been baited and come in 3 nights in a row. So we knew that using daylight optics to shoot it, we had to get there before sort of 8 o'clock. We needed to be in position and absolutely ready until about 9:30 when close of play would be. Scanning with the Accolade was far more comfortable than with my Helions, which I did try side by side. There were 3 of us out, so we were all swapping kit. I can't state how much better these made things, because as soon as I saw that fox, and it still managed to move about 40 metres completely out of sight in that snap decision between going from one side to the other side, went back and it was there. Sat vertically, we were able to make the shot. It was 195 metres and the fox went down straight away on video. Had the fox run on, we would have seen immediately where it had gone. We'd have had the large field of view to see where it had gone to, but that wasn't the case, and it was all on video. If you are in the market for thermal, the price of these at £4,699.99 is significant, but I am actually a very hard person to convince of something. I'm a natural sceptic as a reviewer. Although I would find it hard to justify these for my own needs, were I a keeper, an estate manager, I don't think you can beat these, because the big step forward is not so much in the technology and the sensors, it's the ergonomics of using those sensors. This is where the Accolade really has won me over. I was a big doubter at the start. I spoke to Paul at Scott Country last week and I was, are you trying to convince me this? You're trying to convince me that? And to be fair, 2 nights out foxing with these, I am a complete believer now. It's got to the point where I will have these. I will have probably a trail thermal rifle scope as well, because the days of trying to use night vision are limited, and the days of using optics at night for foxing, once you've moved into the world of thermal, I think you're once bitten, twice shy.